the middle and you can see maybe some things were not the way that you thought they should be. When you look back at your life, we can spend a whole lot of foolish time saying, I wish things would have gone this way. I wish I would have had my way. I wish I woulda, shoulda, coulda done this, or not done this, or I wish I would have moved here, or done this, or earned this, or didn't do this, or whatever. But that's not showing faith in the God who is sovereign. Looking back in regret, folks, is not realizing that God had His way. Looking back in regret is not faith saying, God, you're in control. You can do all things right. Can I tell you that faith at death says this? Listen to me. Faith at death says, Lord, you directed the steps of my feet. Even in the failures and even in the rebellion, you forgave and you moved me on. You had control of my life. You had control of my family. You had control of my everything. And I praise you for what you've done in my life. Despite failures, you are sovereign. Your will be done. I praise you. Some Christians come to the end of their life and all they can do is look back and regret. That is not faith. When you are coming to the valley of the shadow of death, when you are looking forward at the time when you're going to depart this life, don't look back and wish woulda, shoulda, coulda. Praise God that He was sovereign. Did God direct your steps or not? Of course He directed your steps. When we live in regret, we say, God, you messed up. God, it should have been Esau, not Jacob. No, you need to submit and say, Lord, you did all things well, and I ended up where you wanted me to end up. And you chose these things, these paths for my feet. You can look back at your life in regret because you wanted things to be different, or at the end, like Father Isaac, you can surrender your history to the Lord and say, God, you planned it all. Despite me, I praise you for it. You led me all the way. Listen, believers, do not dwell on regret in your life. That's not faith. Dwell on the God of sovereignty who forgives even in your failures and moves you on in the right direction. Dwell and say, praise you, God. All right, I give up. I praise you. You are sovereign and you run all things. Now that's how you want to go out of here. That's how you want to, what you want to say and have faith on your deathbed. That's how you want to end the golden years of your life. Praising God for His sovereignty, that He planned it all. All right? This is faith at the end of your life, submitting to the sovereignty of God and praising for guiding your life. And then there's a second guy. It's that scheming Jacob. You know, if you are such a schemer like that, why does God bless him? Because God has great grace. And God forgave you a bunch of your schemes too, okay? So don't you be looking at Jacob and saying, you know, why would God ever use him as a patriarch? He's a bean, cooker, all right? Don't you be looking at him. I know I made fun of him earlier. Scheming son Jacob did carry out the covenantal blessings, of course. And God appears to him. Now switch gears to this second guy. God appears to him and promises again to make a great nation, the original promises to Abraham. He says, I'm going to make a great nation of you, Jacob, just like He had promised granddaddy Abraham. You remember his sons? You remember the whole pit routine, the coat of many colors, all of that? You remember that? He had a son named Joseph who he also favored. Talk about dysfunctional families. They just all, favoritism here. And he had this son named Joseph who gave this coat. And boy, his sons, they hated this Joseph, this favorite son. So they sell him into slavery. And later, he becomes the vice president of all Egypt. It was really a monarchy, so it's even higher than a vice president situation. He brings his brothers and forgives them and brings his father to Egypt, and they live there in the lap of luxury. Are you there in your mind? And Jacob grows old, his daddy, and he's on his deathbed. And he is our second man of faith in death. Imagine him there. He's on his deathbed now. That scheming bean cooker. Now he's on his deathbed. And he's talking to Joseph, who is second command, vice president of all of Egypt. Imagine him there. Egypt was the world power at the time. They had just saved the entire known world by having a food supply, and Joseph was the main guy who did that. They probably, at this point, control all the economies of the world. And here is Joseph, second in command, Vice President Joseph. Our text says, by faith Jacob, when he was dying, blessed both the sons of Joseph and worshipped leaning upon the top of his staff. That is our Hebrews 11 passage. Let's go to it in Genesis and see how this is a picture of faith. Look at Genesis 47, please, and verse number 28. Genesis 47 and verse number 28. We'll We'll pick up the story. There he is, lying in the lap of luxury. Joseph, the vice president, listening to him. He's laying there. He's in Egypt now. He is no doubt surrounded by puffy pillows and gold and whatever, because Joseph had done this great thing as his son. And notice what he says in verse number 28. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years, so the whole age of Jacob was 147 years. And the time drew nigh that Israel must die. Okay, this is the name given to him. And he called his son Joseph, and he said unto him, If now I found grace in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh. Now this was like a contract agreement, a action of contract. And deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. But I will lie with my fathers, and thou shalt carry me out of Egypt, and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, Swear unto me. And he sware unto him. And Israel bowed himself upon the bed's head. Look at verse number 1. And it came to pass after these things that one told Joseph, Behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his 2 sons. Now here is his grandsons, Manasseh and Ephraim. They come into his presence. Look at verse number 15. It says, And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the Lord which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. Verse 21, And Israel said unto Joseph, Behold, I die. Now look here. In order for this to make any kind of sense to you, you've got to realize he's laying in Egypt. He's laying in the palace of the vice president of all of that land, surrounded by gold, surrounded by great things. And this is what he says, and it's strange that he would say these things. His son had literally saved the entire earth from famine. And he is there as a great leader. He goes every day to work to be the vice president of Egypt. And he says to them, and saying all of that, he says, verse 21, And Israel said to Joseph, this is Jacob speaking, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you, and bring you again unto the land of your fathers. The impact of Jacob's faith. Look up here. Stay with me in the details. The impact of Jacob's faith in his death must lie in the realization that he was holding to the promises of God and not everything that stared at him around him. God had made him a promise about this promised land that neither he nor his father nor his grandfather Abraham had ever possessed. In fact, on his deathbed, he's lying in the lap of luxury in a different country, Egypt, the power of the world, where his son has succeeded to this position of vice president. His son has been there ever since he's been a teen. Egypt is the place to be. Egypt is the United States of that time period. I wanted us to get the picture a little bit better, so I'm going to put it right to you this way. I want you to imagine, get the picture in your mind. Can you imagine Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States of America, from Delaware? You do know who Joe Biden is, don't you, right? Okay. All right. I want you to imagine Joe Biden, Vice President of the United States of America, there at the bedside of his father, Joseph R. Biden from Derry, Ireland. And he's laying in the Biden's Washington estate. And his daddy there, Joseph R., looks up at him. And he tells him a couple of things. He says, Promise me, Joey. Or maybe it's an Irish. Promise me, Joey, that you'll take my body back to Ireland. All right? Maybe we could understand this with the whole Irish nostalgia. Okay, so that's not a terribly hard one to understand. Take me back to Ireland. I'm glad you're the vice president here, but take me back to Ireland. Okay, maybe we could understand that one. But how about this one? Bless your children, Joey, and make them a great nation in Ireland. Okay. And the last one. God bless you, Vice President Joey, and carry you back to Ireland. Now listen, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty sure that Joe Biden and his 3 children, with the status they have as Vice President of the United States of America, are not planning to return to Ireland anywhere in the near future. But this is what he was saying to his son, who had great status and pomp and all of this thing, Vice President, the most powerful country in all the world. You can see here that